Every day, millions of people use public restroom stalls, and almost all of them share the same strange design. Large gaps around the doors, huge openings at the bottom, almost no privacy at all. At first glance, it feels like someone forgot to finish the job. But what if those gaps are actually solving problems you never even thought about? If you've ever used a public restroom, you've probably felt it. That uncomfortable awareness that someone could see your feet, that someone could peek through the crack in the door. It feels wrong. It feels like bad design. So why hasn't anyone fixed it? Most people assume the answer is simple. Money, cheaper materials, faster installation, lower costs. And yes, that's part of the story, but it's also the least interesting part. Because the real reasons these gaps exist have very little to do with saving money. They have everything to do with what happens when things go wrong. Picture this. Someone walks into a restroom stall, locks the door, and then collapses. A seizure, a heart attack, a diabetic emergency. It happens more often than most people realize. In fact, restrooms are one of the most common places for medical emergencies in public spaces. Now imagine that stall is completely sealed, floor to ceiling, no gaps anywhere. Nobody hears anything unusual, no screams, no movement, just silence. Minutes pass, and by the time someone realizes something is wrong, it might already be too late. The gap at the bottom changes everything. A staff member walking by notices feet pointing the wrong direction, or no movement at all. They can call for help immediately. In many cases, that gap is the difference between a bad situation and a fatal one. That's not a design flaw. That's a safety feature. But safety alone doesn't explain why every airport, every school, every stadium uses this exact same design. There's something else going on, something you experience every time you walk into a public restroom, even if you've never really noticed it. The smell. That's probably the first thing you notice. But surprisingly, it's the smallest problem. Public restrooms deal with an enormous amount of humidity. Every flush, every sink, every wet surface adds moisture to the air, and trapped moisture slowly creates something much worse. Mold, mildew, structural damage, and odors that no amount of air freshener can fix. Now imagine hundreds of fully enclosed stalls, each one acting like a sealed box, trapping all that humidity inside. The gaps prevent that. Air moves constantly through the space. Surfaces dry faster, odors clear out. Maintenance becomes easier. It's not glamorous, but it works. And then there's the reason that probably affects more people than any other. The people who clean these places. Think about how often a busy public restroom gets cleaned. Airports, sometimes every 30 minutes. Stadiums during major events, almost constantly. Shopping malls, schools, train stations. Some facilities never really stop cleaning. The moment one employee finishes, another one starts. Now imagine doing that job inside hundreds of fully enclosed stalls. Every corner harder to reach, every floor harder to mop, every surface harder to inspect. The open design changes that completely. A janitor can move through the space faster. Cleaning equipment fits easily. Nothing is hidden in a sealed corner. Over the course of a year, across thousands of locations, that adds up to an enormous amount of saved time and money. Those awkward gaps aren't just inconvenient features. They're what make the entire system manageable. So at this point, you might be thinking, okay, but people hate this design. Why not just change it? Some places have tried. High-end hotels, upscale restaurants, private clubs, full floor-to-ceiling stalls, real doors, actual privacy. And here's what they found. More maintenance, more mold, harder to clean, and in emergencies, slower response times. The problems the gaps were solving didn't disappear. They just became more expensive, which is why, after decades of design evolution, the standard stall has stayed almost exactly the same. Not because nobody noticed the gaps, not because nobody cared about privacy, but because every attempt to eliminate them created even bigger problems. So why do bathroom stalls have gaps? Because they're solving problems most people never think about. Medical emergencies where seconds matter. Humidity that would slowly destroy the space. A cleaning operation repeated dozens of times every single day. That design you've probably complained about your whole life. It was never unfinished. It was never laziness. It was a compromise. The next time you walk into a public restroom, you'll probably notice those gaps again. But now, you'll know something almost everyone else misses. They weren't left there because somebody forgot to finish the job. They were left there because removing them creates even bigger problems. Sometimes the best design isn't the one people like. It's the one that quietly solves problems that most people never even notice. Every single day,